Okay, it's time for Rocco Pasafumi's films review. But before we get into the review, I have a couple of questions for Rocco. I want to put him on the spot.
Sure.
Number one,
Sure, I'm listening.
Netflix
Right.
is going through the roof.
Yes.
Their stock is over 400. The company is going, is the talk of the world right now.
Yes.
And I figured if anyone could talk about why Netflix is becoming more and more popular, it would be Rocco. So Rocco, tell the world about why Netflix is booming and so popular.
Well, the reason why Netflix has taken off the way it has is because of the convenience of Netflix. I mean, it's literally right in your home. And not even just in your home, you can watch it anywhere. You can watch it on your smartphone, you can watch it on your tablet. So there's a great amount of convenience on that. That's the first reason. The second reason is because there's a lot of content, movies, television shows that are exclusively on Netflix, and that's also driven people to Netflix. And the sense of people ask all the time, where have all the good movies gone? Where has all the good entertainment gone? And a lot of people feel that Netflix is where it's gone. I mean, when Netflix started out, the first show that was their first original show was House of Cards. People loved that show. And you've had a bunch of other successes that that you just not would have seen on television prior to Netflix, whether it's Orange is the New Black or Stranger Things, like all these different interesting concepts that are you're just not seeing in regular feature film, on basic cable, on even the premium channels. So it's like it's created this new environment for entertainment, and it's just something that you just haven't seen before. It also, it's just revealing, it's tapped right into where people's comforts are. People do, not everybody wants to go trek to a theater to watch a movie unless it's like some big, grandiose spectacle movie like the superhero movies or like the big movies out in the summer, like the movie I'm about to review soon. But it's just the landscape is changing, and we're seeing more and more as Netflix particularly gets unique, original stuff that can't be seen anywhere else. They have a major foothold in on television now, and it's affected everything, whether it's the movies or TV in general. Like it's created like a whole new dynamic. People, you can watch TV shows, an entire TV show like in one sitting. We call it binge watching. They put shows 10 episodes of one season at the same time. It's on-demand television. That's something that hasn't been seen before, and it's created like a whole new way to consume entertainment, basically.
Yeah, one thing that blew me away, Rocco, and I don't think it never would have happened 5 years ago.
Right.
That the movie, The Irishman, is going to be on Netflix. And think about who's in that movie. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, Ray Romano, directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yes. Having
all those mega stars.
Absolutely.
And on Netflix, that never happens 5 years ago. Talk about that so many superstars and one of the most popular directors are all working together to put out this blockbuster movie on Netflix.
Yeah. The incredible thing about The Irishman is that was a movie that actually was supposed to go to the theaters originally, but what happened though is that Netflix outbid the original studio that wanted to do the film. That's the other thing, I did not even mention this. Netflix has an enormous war chest of money, and they are willing to pay people ridiculous amounts of money to make, to do their stuff exclusively on Netflix. And that's another factor I did not mention. It's funny because Netflix has been consistently in the red in terms of but they're still spending gigantic swaths of money, for people, for entertainers, for filmmakers, and that's what's also played a big factor in it is the fact that Netflix is paying people, there's like a spare no expense mentality over at Netflix, and that was always the biggest problem with the film industry and even on cable is that the money is not so much there. There's always that's why there's always a lot of conservatism around the film industry, because there's always a worry about the return on investment. In Netflix, you don't have to worry about that at all, which is that's kind of created this whole new dynamic.
Okay, we have a couple other things to talk about with Rocco, and Rocco always has great answers.
Yes.
The second thing is the new movie. They've talked about it for years. They had trouble production. but the the story about John Gotti, the famous gangster, starring John Travolta, got a 0 rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
The critics absolutely panned it. Rocco, why do you think with a superstar like a John Travolta about a well-known famous gangster has done so poorly? What do you think's behind this?
It's very interesting you say that. I mean, you would think on paper this could have been a pretty good movie, and from the history of it, it could have been a really good movie because the people that were initially attached to the movie, this was a movie that was in development for a good couple of years. I mean, the original people that were connected to it were Barry Levinson, which you've seen do HBO movies with the Bernie Madoff biopic, The Wizard of Lies, and the movie about Penn State, Paterno. So they were the initial people that were going to be involved with this. So what happened, unfortunately, is that, movies go through a process called development hell where, they have trouble finding financial backers and all that. It's very difficult to make a movie, especially when you don't have Hollywood doing it. Unfortunately, with Hollywood is that they're becoming less inclined to do these kind of more substantive types of movies. They want to do things that are, safe bets like superhero movies or horror movies or things that will, definitely like that won't be that much. It will be an easy ride to making a lot of money. And, where does that leave the more substantive filmmakers to go? They have to do the independent route, and it's very complicated. There's a lot of hands that, have to be working on that. There's the money has to be raised, the finances. It's very tough to get a movie, financed and all that. So what happened with this movie with Gotti was they ended up hiring a first-time director. I should mention before even that this was John Travolta's passion project. He was so committed to getting this movie made. He really was so dead set on getting this movie made. And then unfortunately, when you're that committed, sometimes you can make decisions that are problematic for the movie. Unfortunately, I have not seen this movie, so I can't really comment on the movie directly, but from what I've read about it, in terms of getting a general consensus of what people felt went wrong with the movie, first off is that they hired an inexperienced director. They hired an actor. He was one of the cast members of Entourage, Kevin Connolly. He played the manager E on that show. So this was his first film that he attempted to do. Of course, the other possibility was the script. A lot of people said that the script was very haphazard, and you really didn't get a real feel for the story of Gotti. A lot of people did not feel that John Travolta was the problem of the movie. They felt that John Travolta was actually one of the strengths, the very few strengths of the movie. They said that he really lived up to the role. The problem was it basically was a movie on very, very shaky ground. They felt that the cast wasn't of sufficient quality, especially the guy who played the son. And unfortunately, the angle they went with the movie is that the son and it was a father-son story, basically. And there were a lot of critics who felt that it just wasn't that compelling. It didn't really hold the movie. It was like a ship that was completely rudderless. It just didn't have like a firm foundation. And they felt like with the kind of way they told the story, it just was a film that really kind of didn't, it really didn't hone on its subject matter in the kind of compelling way that it could have. It likely was all chalked up to a script that didn't really get put together, diligently enough. It also came to an inexperienced director. It came to a cast that maybe was not of sufficient quality. The movie was only $10 million, which is not a lot to make a movie, because, when you have a lower budget, you have, less actors that, because of course, actors want to make money, they want to get paid. So unfortunately, you have sometimes actors that are not of sufficient quality, and unfortunately, maybe it was on a very shaky ground, and unfortunately, that's what turned a lot of the critics off about the movie.
All right, and lastly, Rock, I want to ask you about a new concept that has taken off.
Yes.
And I was rooting for it to take off because, from a personal standpoint, over a year ago, we got to interview the great Ralph Macchio from The Karate Kid, and Cobra Kai on YouTube Red has taken off.
Yes.
It's already been picked up for a second season.
Yes.
So Rocco, tell the fans out there why this new concept, in your opinion, why Cobra Kai on this new format, YouTube Red, has been such a big hit.
I think what's made it so successful is the fact that, one, this was a show that was on a very new thing, YouTube. Well, now it's called YouTube Premium. They renamed it. And the second thing was there's a lot of nostalgia for Karate Kid, including you. We love Karate Kid. And the other thing is it all starts with really making a good story, you know, and you know, with what the critics have said, they feel like it was a really good story. That, you know, the fact that, you know, they told a story which on paper could have been a terrible idea, and they really made it a story of substance and a story where you really felt, you know, empathy for these characters, especially for Johnny Lawrence, you know, which was not the most sympathetic character in the world, but they fleshed out the character on Cobra Kai, and they made him, you know, even though he's like, you know, kind of what we call an anti-hero, he had this kind of sympathetic element to him, and that made the show fascinating. It's a 10-episode show right now in its first season, and there's just an aspect of the show, you know, knowing that, you know, it's that nice balance of, you know, comedic aspects of, you know, that kind of, it has hallmarks and touchstones on the original movie. People that are nostalgic love that sort of thing. And then also the fact that, you know, it had that kind of great, compelling, sweet story that we all love about the original Karate Kid. And the other aspect, too, that I feel like maybe helped the show is the fact that the show kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. It was transgressive, you know, compared to the original movie. The original movie was a PG movie. It was targeted not just at teenagers, but at children, and, you know, it was like a family audience. This show is more of a teen show, and that helped it. I mean, you know, it shows that, you know, people naturally want to see a storyline advance and push the envelope, and this dovetailed nicely with that. So that definitely helped. And of course, it all starts, like I said, with a cast and a great story, and having William Zabka, who plays Johnny Lawrence, and Ralph Macchio especially, you know, they managed to put this together, and it was just fabulous. And you know, it turned an idea that looked really silly on paper, and just made it. And it all starts with a really good quality story. So there you go.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, because I watched several episodes, and one thing I think that, and I watched some interviews, is that Ralph Macchio and William Zabka really are very close friends.
Yes.
They have a great chemistry. But
yes.
One thing that Ralph Macchio mentioned is that it gives tribute to the original Karate Kid.
Yes.
But it makes William Zabka a sympathetic figure, down on his luck.
Yes.
But I think also, too, which really resonates with today's youth,
yes.
is that some of the youthful characters,
yes.
like the kid that trains under William Zabka.
Yes.
He's this nerdy kid
yes.
who's got asthma,
right.
and, you know, he's picked on by the bullies,
yes.
and he becomes this, you know, and you know, and I think the youth of today can relate to
totally.
a kid like him, a kid
yes.
that's bullied that
yes.
fights back against the bullies. So
right.
I think a lot of adding the youthful characters
yes.
to the you know, the legends that we love,
right.
it's just such a great.
Yeah.
And also too is, I think, you know, you have 3 great directors. It's well written,
yes.
well acted. I think it has all the components to being a major hit, where I think it's going to
yes.
have a run for many years.
Oh, definitely. I think adding to what Howie just said, you're right. I think that having young characters, I think, was essential and key, because, you know, I mean, you can have a show with, you know, the older fans of it, and that's all well and good, but you're going to have a new generation that this is going to appeal to. So this was a good show for teens. And when you look at the landscape now, there's not a lot that teens really like. I was actually reading an article in Variety about that, you know, the cable television has lost the teen market. The film industry, apart from the superhero movies, has lost the youth market. And so there's not a lot out there. I mean, where are teens going? They're looking online. They're looking on, you know, Netflix and stuff like that. We're in an internet age, and so they you know, and YouTube picked on this brilliantly to have a show that appealed directly to teens, or at least could directly appeal to them, that, you know, felt real and genuine. It wasn't like everything that you've seen before. You know, it's all about pushing the envelope and pushing the creative, you know, juices of, you know, writers and directors and actors and all that. And that's what everybody wants. So I really do feel that you know, they hit on something. And, you know, it's like I said before, it's all about, it starts with having something of quality. And I feel like this added to that. This wasn't just like, you know, cashing in on nostalgia. This was a really genuinely good continuation of something that everybody loves.